I'll tell you guys a little bit about Elizabeth McCourt, who's coming on. She's a leadership coach, and she is also an author. And I'm pretty excited to have her on to talk to her about what she has going on in her life and in her work. So, Elizabeth, I would love for you to tell people about who you are, what you do, and how you impact the world.
Well, I am an entrepreneur like yourself, and we met a really cool group in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
And I call my work, I call McCourt Leadership Group. And in that, I do three distinct things that are all working in the same mindset. Because I like to say I help people tap into their inner warrior. And really, it's about making better leaders. And I do this through coaching and workshops, speaking professionally,
Mm-hmm.
and writing also. So I have a book coming out. So it's related but unrelated to leadership.
Tell me, how did you get into leadership? Like, what made you decide that was something that was important to you to build leaders?
It's so interesting. I was a headhunter for 16 years, and I still do a little bit of that actually. So it's hard to totally step away from your expertise.
Yeah.
And I always felt that my approach was very different. I never believed in, square peg, round hole. I was aggressive in a different way. I always listened to what someone wanted and then tried to give them the information they needed to make a decision and to be the leader of their own life. And so this coach approach, this leadership development is something that's always felt very natural to me. And for my own self, I was always wondering how I could grow and doing coaching and really focused leadership development just really came to be what my passion was and what I want to do full time.
So were you seeing a gap basically, like the people that were coming to you and looking for a job that they were lacking in some area that you thought that you could fulfill that? Is that kind of how it developed, or more?
I think it was more about wanting to be more focused.
Okay.
Because I am actually a headhunter for financial services, so a very specific niche business that I'm still very well known for. And I think I just wanted to be more expansive and the people that I could really help.
Right.
Leaders who are really looking to be more authentic and to develop deeper connection. And those are the type of people that have that insight. I would say that's never people that are failing. It's people that are wanting to make a bigger impact in this world. And my goal is to help them get there.
I love that. A lot of people, when you talk about coaching, there's that mindset of like, why would I ever need a coach, or why would I ever need, that's for weak people. That's for,
yeah.
And from what you just said, and I have experienced, it's like people who really want to improve themselves and develop are looking for ways to actually do it.
Absolutely. I mean, I was one of those people that I was like, oh, coaching, that's BS. I don't need that. I'm a very directed person. And I actually got a coach myself because I was at a crossroads of what do I want to do next? How do I develop my life? And I found this amazing coach who was super smart and an MBA and helped me push beyond my limits. And I thought, oh, eureka. It really is for pushing yourself further than you thought you could push yourself. And I mean, in simplistic terms, I always say, professional athletes all have coaches. So why don't high-level business people have them too?
Exactly. That makes complete sense. So when you're working you're primarily in a corporate environment with the specific work that you do. So,
yeah, mostly corporate.
Okay. So, what you're talking about, especially in like a corporate landscape, is very forward thinking. So are you dealing with like a lot of companies that are more progressive, or are you finding also that a lot of traditional companies are becoming more open-minded to creating leaders with their company?
I like to think that's the case. It's not always the case, but certainly there, I work with some companies, Silicon Valley, and it's definitely more progressive minded. And then I also work with, believe it or not, I work with some international organizations and have done some of that kind of work, which is really a sweet spot for me. And I think in Europe, it seems to be even a little more acceptable to have this kind of high level coaching experience, which I found really interesting.
Have you like realized the reason why? Like, has it become apparent why internationally it's more acceptable than here in the US, or?
I don't know. know. I'm still trying to figure that out. I just think as we evolve as a culture,
Mhm.
there is less stigma attached to, saying you went to therapy, or to be more open with your experience, or that you got a coach. It doesn't mean you're failing. I think people used to think all of those things meant you were screwing up and you were failing. And I think this concept of authenticity and emotional intelligence is a little more socially acceptable now than it was, let's say, 20 years ago.
Mhm. Mhm. So when you get called in, are you working one-on-one with the top corporate, and or are you also doing, like, say, the typical term is like a lunch and learn, but to actually do seminars or like 1 or 2 day events with companies?
It's a little bit of both. I mean, I like to keep my one-on-one relationships really small. I like to have a few select one-on-ones because I want to give that personalized attention. And it's also, I think it's also sort of, the mindset of how you scale a business is not to do a million one-on-ones. So that's not really my strength point of
Mhm.
doing a lot of that, but being very specific to people who I find interesting and want to grow. And then I do the corporate is more development and workshop based. So that is, multiple people.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So you might take like a whole section of a business or a department of a business and get them to work together more and develop that.
Yeah, it's this one project I'm going to be working on next year is it's actually an international job with a company that acquired a company in the United States, and they're doing some very specific leadership development over the course of 3 years, believe it or not, and they're in year 2, and year 2 is going to be some very specific leadership development that I've been called in to do for this project, which is really exciting.
That sounds like it could be a really creative opportunity to work with people in that way.
Yeah, I think you have to be. I always say I'm a practical minded creative because
Yeah.
obviously it's important to have, and I know you have this too, it's like you've got to have a business mindset,
Mm-hmm.
but you've got to be able to creatively flex your brain so that you can problem solve and be more reflective. So it's because it's not always A plus B equals C anymore, is it?
No,
Or it never was.
no, especially when you're dealing with people, it's definitely not that.
Yeah.
Well, this is a perfect segue because you actually have written a book that's coming out, and I want to hear all about it.
Well, it's so funny because I'm writing a nonfiction book that is a little more on the leadership development side.
Uh-huh.
And I accidentally mentioned that, oh, I had a novel. And sure enough, they say, can I read the novel? Oh, this is actually good. Can I pitch this novel? Sure. And I'm publishing this novel called Sin in the Big Easy, which is a thriller based in New Orleans that is available for pre-order and coming out officially in March of next year.
That's so exciting. So for pre-order, would people get that on Amazon? Like where is it actually available?
Yeah, you can find it. You can find it on Amazon under my name, Elizabeth McCourt, or Sin in the Big Easy. So, I'd love anyone wants to pre-order it. Let me know, and I'm just very excited about it. It's been a long time coming, this project.
Okay, going back to the creative, right? So you have this. You're multifaceted as a entrepreneur and the work that you do. So you
Yes.
do the headhunting, you do the leadership coaching, and then you're doing a fictional book that's seems completely unrelated. In how does that all make sense in your life?
I know. Someone said to me, like, how are you going to spin that? And I said, I'm working on a talk that goes with it. I think I told you. It's how to write a novel in 15 years or less. Do not do what I did. And that it really goes with a lot of the work I do is that high level people always, have that voice in their head, the self-sabotage. And we all have it. And I had it myself in wanting to fulfill this dream of mine to get this novel done.
Yeah.
And so the fact that I actually finished it and it's getting out there, part of it feels like a bit of a runaway train that I can't stop it now.
Yeah.
But the other part of me is just so excited that it is a runaway train. And maybe the fact that it took so long, I care a little bit less. I hope people like it, but if people don't, oh well. Right.
So in these kind of projects, do you find that it's important to, like, in addition to what you do daily or that you have and express in your daily life through your work or through working with other people, that perhaps, because we talked a little bit about this in a previous conversation about the fact that how do you feel that that kind of creative expression is important in your life in particular, but also for people? Like something
Oh,
completely I mean, it is related because it's you and it's coming from you, but it's unrelated in that it's not. It doesn't have to deal with your everyday life or work.
right. I think that, you're right. I think you and I are very much on the same page with this, is that you have to kind of give your brain that, I always call it brain jumping jacks or creative flexibility, whatever that might be for you, whether it's riding motorcycles like you do, or some people go running, which I do,
Yeah.
or writing or singing, or like whatever it is that sort of gives your brain that, to sort of utilize a different part of your brain to flex and expand, and then sort of bring you as you're working on problem solving with some fresh, rejuvenated eyes, I think is really important. Because if we just stay focused, as I was just talking about with a client, I mean, that is just the road to burnout, really.
Right. Right. And how did you write this, doing all the other work that you did? Like, how did you carve out time? Like, how did you make it all just kind of happen?
Well, when you have 15 years, you can get a lot of time done. You time in, but exactly. I mean, ridiculous. Because I think I wanted to make it perfect, which is never going to be perfect, and that's part of the problem. And part of one of my things to work on is this letting go of this perfection. And I do work on this particular thing with many, many clients. Obviously, it's like what you're working on sometimes is what your clients are working on too. But it was part of an MFA.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I got an MFA from Stony Brook, Southampton.
Let's just throw in an MFA too. Go ahead.
I did it for pleasure. Actually, they said at the 10-year mark, they were like, "Excuse me, Miss McCourt, if you don't wrap this up, all those credits go into the toilet." And so I had this sort of like, I had to get it done because I realized I actually had put in all that work. I did want to, and I needed, for me, I am kind of like goal-oriented person. So I really like that. I like that goal, mark the goal and then run towards the goal. Some people are not like that. I think you have to find out the way you work best. And for me, that goal orientation works for me. May not work for everyone, but I think that's part of when you coach someone too. You find out like how do you work best?
Yeah, how they
and then we'll do yeah, and then we'll do that. That's accountability and goals are for me.
So this nonfiction book, you said that the story is related to what you actually do. So it's a thriller?
It's a thriller because I always say I'm like a woman of many lives. I used to be a trial lawyer, and are you seeing me? I used to be a trial lawyer, and I did my schooling in New Orleans, and so I just fell in love with the mystery of New Orleans, and decided that that this book took on a new life once I started having a really good time. And just, I took some of what I knew to be true and then just went nuts with fiction. So, because I always think you have to take a piece of truth, and people always say, "Is that you? Are you the main character?" I'm sorry. I'm like, no, I'm not the main character. It's like sort of a compilation of observation, and I've had to experience different. I say there's a part of me in every single character.
I like that.
Good and bad.
Now I really can't wait to read it.
Every character. I said exactly. I said even the character who is flawed. I believe in flawed characters. I believe that flaws make us more interesting people. So, so I don't know.
It's good. It's
even the bad
real,
stuff.
right?
That's me too.